On this 26th day of June, history has been made as the president has rescinded the contentious finance bill, and of course the youth and Gen Zs have been called upon to bring a leader for a faceless protest. We're going to be diving into all of that, but first, let's take a look at the highlights. Tonight, a president reconsiders, a pivotal moment after the finance bill's deadly thriller protests.
I concede, and therefore I will not sign the 2024 finance bill, and it shall subsequently be withdrawn.
Also tonight, a two-hander from the DP, on one hand calling for cooler heads to prevail.
Had the National Intelligence Service briefed the president 2 months ago about how the people of Kenya feel about the Finance Bill 2024, so many Kenyans would not have died.
On the other, the NIS Director General finds himself under the bus. And in the aftermath chaos, rage and bloodshed.
Amepigwa risasi hapa hivi. Hapa hivi ndo amepigwa.
Tungetarajia mengi kutoka kwake. Kwa nini alimshuti sasa? Na hao vijana walikuwa tu wazuri, hawakuwa wanafanya kitu baya.
Several killed, with many people injured in Tuesday's chaotic protests against the finance bill. All right, welcome to this live broadcast. My name is Hibak Said. On sign language interpretation tonight is Catherine Simaloy. To start us off, President William Ruto has responded to public pressure announcing today that he would not sign the contentious Finance Bill 2024 into law. This coming a day after demonstrations which saw many Kenyans dead, hundreds injured, and property of unknown value lost. In his address to the nation on Wednesday afternoon, President Ruto insisted on the need to engage in dialogue with the young generation on the way forward for the country, acknowledging that the bill's withdrawal will impact public debt, which his administration aimed to control, as he warned of austerity measures as well as dealing with corruption.
Yesterday, after Parliament gave a nod to the Finance Bill 2024, President William Ruto has succumbed to unprecedented public pressure led by young generation in a speech that had markedly different tone from one of last night. The president today announced that he would not sign the contentious Finance Bill 2024 into law, stating that it will be shelved to allow for a dialogue and a collective approach to financing the current budget.
That they want nothing to do with this Finance Bill 2024, I concede, and therefore I will not sign the 2024 Finance Bill, and it shall subsequently be withdrawn, and I have agreed with these members that that becomes our collective position.
Historic step implies that for now it appears that 3.9 trillion budget will be managed using current Finance Act along with external and internal borrowing to address budget deficit. In his address, President William Ruto made it clear that it will not be business as usual for government by announcing more austerity measures for the state.
For immediate further austerity measures to reduce expenditure, starting with the Office of the President, the entire presidency, and extending to the entire executive arm of government. Operational expenditure in the presidency be reduced to remove allocations for the confidential fort, reduce travel, hospitality, purchase of motor vehicles, renovations, and other expenditures.
Further, the commander-in-chief announced that a total of 6 people were killed during the anti-finance bill protests, contrary to the reports that more than 20 people have been confirmed dead.
Make sure that those 6 Kenyans who died yesterday will be accounted for. Number 2, I did promise the country that there will be no extrajudicial killings going forward.
After President William Ruto has declared that he is not going to sign the Finance Bill 2024, now all eyes are on him and executive entirely to see if they are going to walk the talk. Elizabeth Mutiko, TV47, State House, Nairobi.
Thank you, Liza. For the first time in the history of Kenya, a senior government officer has hit out at the country's premier intelligence gathering organization, the move parting the curtains on the inner workings of government, specifically the role of the National Intelligence Service in advising and providing the president with vital information in managing issues of national security, a role Deputy President feels NIS leadership has failed at. Deputy President Gachagwa's acidic comments on the conduct of the NIS Director General comes in the wake of fierce anti-government sentiment that escalated from what was initially anti-finance bill protests that turned deadly on Tuesday.
In his characteristic bare-knuckle delivery, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua went for the jugular of the National Intelligence Services, sniping at its Director General Nuruddin Haji, whom he accuses of failing in his duty to thoroughly and in a timely manner brief President William Ruto on the extent of the anti-finance bill and anti-government sentiment that led to the protest that turned deadly. Gachagua adding the lives lost in the protest could have been averted should the NIS boss have been diligent.
We have a dysfunctional National Intelligence Service that has exposed the president, the government, and the people of Kenya. Had the National Intelligence Service briefed the president 2 months ago about how the people of Kenya feel about the Finance Bill 2024, so many Kenyans would not have died.
In the late Wednesday evening address by the president's principal assistant, Gachagua's scathing attack on the NIS chief demanded that Haji take responsibility for the mayhem witnessed across the country and, crucially, for him to resign.
Had Nuruddin Haji done his job, we would not be where we are today. He has no capacity. He is out of the country most of the time on business trips. The country is on its own.
Gachagua raised questions to the effectiveness of the country's intelligence services in carrying out their roles in advising and providing the commander-in-chief with necessary information to manage national security issues on time before the matters snowball into a disaster.
My boss, President William Ruto, is exposed. That he has to back down and admit that he has hurt the people of Kenya. Yet this matter has been in public domain for the last 2 months.
Tuesday, the country witnessed protests in various parts of the country. Protests that later turned deadly and destructive.
President William Ruto deserves better. He deserves a Director General who knows what he's doing. He deserves a National Intelligence Service that is effective and that can analyze situations and keep him and the government informed on what is going on.
The Deputy President further called for the reinstatement of 3 directors and 13 assistant directors to the National Intelligence Services who have been removed from the office by the NIS chief. Mwigi William, TV47.
Thank you, Moige, for those insights. During the now countrywide anti-finance bill protests, a series of disappearances believed to be state-directed abductions sent waves of anger and chills across the nation, with key voices in the nationwide appearances or appearing to be targeted. Human rights organizations put the number at 22 abductions. Interestingly, and in his address this afternoon, President Ruto appeared to allude to the involvement of the police in the amidst this calls for the release of those still missing. Sheila Chilangat tells us more.
Casmuel Macau's whereabouts still remains unknown. He is facing a similar fate to that of a few other vocal anti-finance bill voices. Up to now, no one in the security forces has taken responsibility for it. The pressure from several quarters, including fellow Gen Z activists for his immediate release, is mounting. Among those demanding for a response is the Law Society of Kenya, which has played quite a pivotal role in the release of the others.
Dr. Omondi said he didn't know where he was as well, and he was thrown out of a truck. Billy as well was found around Muthaiga.
Human rights organizations put the total number of abductions at 22, arrests at 50, and 23 deaths, begging the question, who could have authorized these abductions?
The president and I gave a categorical promise to the people of Kenya that the issue of abductions and extrajudicial killings will never happen again. Sadly, this is back.
But all the people they mentioned have since been found in police custody, and those that were already processed were already released.
This stance by the president and his deputy today, seen as almost an inadvertent admission of the police having a hand at the series of abductions.
The police, I have sat down with the command of the police from the IG downwards, and we have agreed that they will operate within the law.
The question on the lips of many remains, could the country be returning to the era of rogue policing? Sheila Chelangat for TV47.
Very interesting. Thank you, Sheila. The nation has been in turmoil for the past week with fierce protests against the controversial Finance Bill 2024, leading to tragic clashes amid rising pressure and public outrage. President Ruto concedes, marking a significant moment in this intense and ongoing conflict. And Odida with the events that transpired before President William Ruto bowed to pressure.
A major concession has been obtained from the executive following days of protest against the controversial Finance Bill 2024 that led to tragic clashes, resulting in the loss of at least 20 Kenyan lives.
I concede, and therefore I will not sign the 2024 Finance Bill.
This announcement comes at a time when President Ruto faced mounting pressure, with Kenyans being unfazed and even further infuriated by his order to deploy the Kenya Defence Forces to support the National Police in quelling the protests. Could the supporters and allies of the government who had hitherto remained silent during this turmoil have played a role in President William Ruto's final ceding ground on the hotly contested debate? The clergy in particular faced intense scrutiny for their perceived inaction as the situation surrounding the finance bill spiraled out of control.
If you've been in Kenya, we have been speaking. We spoke about finance bill and we said this is too burdensome to Kenyans. We said. But you see, the voice from the church has never been lacking. It is the hearing ear that is lacking.
Adding to the call for calm was the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition, which urged President Ruto to withdraw the Finance Bill 2024 until thorough dialogue could address the concerns of citizens.
What Kenya, the region, Africa, and the world is witnessing on a minute-by-minute cycle is the unveiling of one dictator, William Ruto.
Today, significantly, the United Nations expressed concern over the fatalities, injuries, including those of members of the press and healthcare providers.
It is very important that the rights of people to demonstrate peacefully be upheld. As we say anywhere around the world, it is up also to authorities to ensure that those rights are respected and that all incidents of deaths in the hands of security forces be fully investigated.
This international pressure came on the heels of President William Ruto's stern address last night, which only seemed to fuel public outrage further. All eyes are now on the protesters and the state for the resolution of what had increasingly become a deadly stalemate. Anne Odida, TV47.
Thank you, Odida. Traders in Nairobi's central business district are tallying losses in the wake of widespread looting and damage during the anti-finance bill demonstrations yesterday. And as Mike Kagongo reports, major towns including Nyeri, Mombasa, Eldoret and Nakuru saw similar pandemonium, with businesses remaining closed and transport being disrupted as protesters expressed their anger at the state of the nation.
Traders and business owners are counting their losses in the wake of Tuesday's anti-tax demonstrations, with property of unknown worth being looted and razed to bitter ashes. The owners of the Uganda House building on Kenyatta Avenue that was set ablaze are blaming police officers for the fire, stating that they believe the fire was caused by a tear gas canister. The fire hit the building at the time that the structure was undergoing renovations and was scheduled to be occupied in the next few weeks. In a stern speech to the public last night, President William Ruto characterized Tuesday's violent turmoil in Parliament and across the nation as perilous and promised a serious response to restore normalcy, although with the magnitude of the damage still unknown. In the midst of a heavy presence of law enforcement, Nairobi streets were considerably quieter than usual for a Wednesday. Many businesses were closed as well, as locals feared that looting and vandalism they saw on Tuesday might return. The government's affordable housing project was not spared either. In Thika Town, Kiambu County, construction of 975 units of the affordable houses that include 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms and studio apartments has been stalled after protesters vandalized the site, making away with millions of construction equipment.
We are talking of millions of money, because we have really lost the stock that we had for steel in the stores and steel again. And again, vandalism on the machineries, our bashing plant got attacked.
Elsewhere, Naivas supermarket in Thika Town is also counting huge losses after criminals invaded the store and stole goods worth hundreds of thousands of shillings.
Watu walipora ambaye hatuaminiani ati hawa vijana hawa wadogo ndio walifanya hivi, sababu vijana wadogo walikuwa wanapigania haki yao. Lakini kuliingia watu wabaya, wakakuja wakapora ambaye sio mzuri. Alafu tena ukiangalia huko affordable house iliharibiwa. Na tuwezi sema ni Gen Z, sababu Gen Z pia nayo wanataka right yao. Na wanatokea sababu hakuna kazi, hakuna ajira.
Mike Kagongo, TV47, Nairobi.
Thank you, Kagongo, for that. President William Ruto's address to the nation on Wednesday was devoid of any mention of the deployment of the Kenya Defence Forces, KDF, to various parts of the country, in what appeared to be a swiftly carried out 24-hour process featuring the publishing of a Gazette notice, a motion passed by Parliament, and a subsequent quashing of the same by the High Court, courtesy of a petition by the Law Society of Kenya. George Maringa reports on the aborted mission.
It was this Gazette notice on Tuesday evening, following day-long protests, that set the ball rolling. Defense CS Aden Duale, citing Article 241 3B of the Constitution of Kenya and Sections 31, 33 and 34 of the Kenya Defence Forces Act, effectively deployed the KDF in support of the National Police Service in response to the security emergency caused by the violent protests in various parts of the country. Come Wednesday morning, National Assembly Speaker Moses Wetangula convened a special sitting, the agenda to approve the deployment. Reportedly, in 30 short minutes, the motion had been passed. Article 33(2) of the Kenya Defence Forces Act states that the KDF may, with the approval of the National Assembly, be deployed to restore peace in any part of Kenya.
And then suddenly we get to Parliament and we are confronted with this heavy issue in terms of the deployment of KDF. And thirdly, what Dr. Nyikal mentioned to you is as a result of what the Speaker did, we ended up with some commotion in Parliament, and that you would not know because you are not there. Because now members of Parliament, especially from the opposition, had to resort to shouting and confrontation, but they were still not listened to. In the end, the House orderlies escorted the Speaker to the Speaker's chambers. Now, to come back to
today's motion, the purported approval by the National Assembly of deployment of our Kenya Defence Forces in managing internal affairs of security, which was presented before the House today by the Leader of Majority, Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah, did not follow the procedures of the House, was completely out of order, and should be treated as such.
But the Law Society of Kenya, LSK, was not having it. Through the President, Faith Odhiambo, LSK filed a petition to thwart the deployment.
There was no full house, there was no proper discussion on the same, in an aim to try and sanitize the illegal actions of this government, the same government that is claiming to uphold the rule of law. It is the position of the Law Society of Kenya that both the Gazette notices are unconstitutional, and Parliament has, though they have attempted to approve the same post de facto.
Their prayers granted by the High Court.
And we are happy to announce that the court has issued orders stopping the proposed or purported deployment. And we will share with you a bit more on the orders that the court has since pronounced itself on. Article 23, subsection 3B of the Constitution, that has been cited by the CS Defense in his Gazette notice, allows the KDF to be deployed to assist other authorities in cases of emergency or national disaster. No state of emergency has been declared, and there is no national disaster.
Whereas President William Ruto steered clear of the matter in his address on Wednesday afternoon, eyes will be on the events of Thursday moving forward. George Maringa, TV47, Nairobi.
Tonight, several families are in despair following the brutal killing of their loved ones by police in the last 24 hours. A spot check by our crimes reporter Franklin Wala in a number of mortuaries within Nairobi revealed a sad state of affairs in the manner in which the youthful protesters lost their lives. Here is the story of how the 2024 Finance Bill protests left a majority of families with dreadful scars that will not heal anytime soon.
Unfortunate scenes at the Nairobi City mortuary. A mother drowning in tears, collapsing moments after confirming the worst, seeing her son's bullet-riddled body currently preserved at the facility. Her son is among those killed by police during the 2024 Finance Bill protest.
Julikana kama Erickson Chalo, 25 years old. Amepigwa risasi hapa hivi. Hapa hivi ndo amepigwa.
Tungetarajia mengi kutoka kwake. Kwa nini alimshuti sasa? Na hao vijana walikuwa tu wazuri, hawako wanafanya kitu baya.
At the facility there are 6 bodies with serious gunshot injuries, mainly on the head and chest. The bodies are those of Erickson Chialo Motisia, David Chege, Bisley Kogi, and 3 others who so far remain unknown. All the 6 bodies were brought here from Nairobi CBD by police from Kamkunji and the Central Police Station.
A beehive of activities at the city mortuary, just a few of the parents trying to come here and seek clarification on the whereabouts of their missing kids.
At the Kenyatta National Hospital Funeral Home, there are 2 bodies with gunshot wounds. One is that of Evans Kiratu, who died while receiving treatment at KNH. An autopsy exercise on the body of Evans Kiratu happened today at the KNH Funeral Home. It was established his cause of death was serious injuries to his groin area.
Ameumia sana pande ya chini, that is the groin and the pelvic, ambayo inaonekana imepasuka na iko separated, na pia kwa kifua inaonekana pia amepasuka bafu kadhaa.
One of the other body brought to the KNH Funeral Home yesterday is that of Erickson Kayoni Shieni, who is a 4th-year student at the University of Nairobi. In Nakuru County, 4 people were killed. Kakamega and Nyeri counties reported 2 deaths each during the protest. Also reports emerged there is another person who died in Nyahururu and Mombasa. According to the Police Reforms Working Group, at least 23 Kenyans have been killed and police are to be blamed for using excessive force. A number the president disputed in his address, pegging it instead at 6 in total. As this happens, Mary Wamoyu knows no peace. She is among disturbed parents who are still searching for the whereabouts of their children after the chaotic protest. Whenever a body arrives at the city mortuary, Wamuyi's heart freezes and grief and shock take over as she thinks the body is that of her child.
Juu president yetu nimeleta hiyo maneno yote ukweli. Sasa chuki hata sijui na mtu wake mpata wapi yake. Sasa venye aliongea jana, ulisikia mtu aliongea aje ukweli? Ulisikia kuna kitu aliongea maana kweli? Angeongea tu ukweli, aongea na vijana. Sasa hebu niambie kama huyo kijana wangu ako wapi ukweli? Ni kijana mdogo hajafikisha miaka 20.
Franklin Wala, TV47.
Sports News.
Kila kiongozi ana hadithi yake ya kipekee.
Wazazi wangu walikuwa bit strict kwa sababu mamangu mwenyewe, mimi kutoka kuzaliwa sijailala nje.
The white small one, huyo ana sniff gunpowder na risasi na bomb. Alafu huyo mwingine ni Ridgeback ana sniff simba.
Even the employees knows that, so when in the boardroom is the chairman, the CEO and the rest of.
At what point are you a wife?
The minute you get to that inside that door, you become now the wife.
Na kila maamuzi wanayoyafanya hufichua mengi kuhusu utu wao na uongozi wao.
We see God blessing us, and we now realize the power of giving also has to be rewarded back.
Kupitia kipindi Mfahamu Kiongozi, tunakuletea mahojiano ya kusisimua na uchambuzi wa kina kuhusu viongozi wetu.
Pick your core business as the bigger stones. Put them in your diary first. Give priority the bigger things.
Usikose kila Alhamis saa 1:30 jioni.
In a world where challenges are as common as opportunities, there are those who dare to defy the odds. They are the entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurship isn't just about starting a business, it's about embracing uncertainty, pushing boundaries, and turning dreams into reality.
Hata ambao ni pesa ya kusave, wallahi. Ambao mwaka ni pesa nyingi sana.
As long as you're earning something, there's always that opportunity to save. And you start with where you are.
The way we run the business is in a very unforgiving way, where every team member has to bring out their best.
So, to all the dreamers, innovators, and risk takers out there, remember, being an entrepreneur isn't just a job, it's a way of life. Join the journey. Become an entrepreneur. The Grind, Mondays at 7:30 p.m.
Here on Beyond the Limit, we celebrate the extraordinary achievements of individuals who redefine possibilities. In a journey of resilience and determination, these individuals demonstrate that limitations are merely stepping stones to greatness.
I'm Nancy Njoroge, a mother of 3. I have 2 girls and a boy who is Clinton and who is autistic.
When my heart got healed, I decided to come out to be creating CP awareness, to let other people know that there is such a condition, and people that has it is not that they are witches.
Together, let's go beyond the limit every Saturday at 8 p.m.
Welcome to The Realtor, where we take you on an exciting journey from bare land to dream home. Step 1. Finding the perfect plot. We explore location, size, and potential. Next, construction begins. Witness the foundation being laid, walls rising, and rooms taking shape. Step 3. Electricity matters. We delve into wiring, switches, and smart home tech. Step 4. From paint choices to fixtures, it's all about aesthetics. Step 5. It's time to get the right furniture. Finally, the big day. Time to move in and create memories. Join us on the journey to making homes a reality on The Realtor, Tuesdays 6:30.
Kila kiongozi ana hadithi yake ya kipekee.
Wazazi wangu walikuwa bit strict kwa sababu mamangu mwenyewe, mimi kutoka kusaliwa sijailala nje.
The white small one, huyo ana sniff gunpowder na risasi na bomb. Alafu huyo mwingine ni ridgeback ana sniff simba.
Even the employees knows that. So when in the boardroom is the chairman, the CEO, and the rest of.
At what point are you a wife?
The minute you get to that inside that door, you become now the wife.
Na kila maamuzi wanayoyafanya hufichua mengi kuhusu utu wao na uongozi wao.
We see God blessing us, and we now realize the power of giving also has to be rewarded back.
Kupitia kipindi Mfahamu Kiongozi, tunakuletea mahojiano ya kusisimua na uchambuzi wa kina kuhusu viongozi wetu.
Pick your core business as the bigger stones. Put them in your diary first. Give priority the bigger things.
Usikose kila Alhamis saa 1:30 jioni.
In a world where challenges are as common as opportunities, there are those who dare to defy the odds. They are the entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurship isn't just about starting a business, it's about embracing uncertainty, pushing boundaries and turning dreams into reality.
Hata ambao ni pesa ya kusave, wallahi. Ambao mwaka ni pesa nyingi sana.
As long as you're earning something, there's always that opportunity to save. And you start with where you are.
The way we run the business is in a very unforgiving way, where every team member has to bring out their best.
So, to all the dreamers, innovators, and risk takers out there, remember, being an entrepreneur isn't just a job, it's a way of life. Join the journey, become an entrepreneur. The Grind, Mondays at 7:30 p.m.
Here on Beyond the Limit, we celebrate the extraordinary achievements of individuals who redefine possibilities. In a journey of resilience and determination, these individuals demonstrate that limitations are merely stepping stones to greatness.
I'm Nancy Njoroge, a mother of 3. I have 2 girls and a boy who is Clinton and who is autistic.
When my heart got healed, I decided to come out to be creating CP awareness, to let other people know that there is such a condition, and people that has it is not that they are witches.
Together, let's go beyond the limit every Saturday at 8 p.m.
Welcome to The Realtor, where we take you on an exciting journey from bare land to dream home. Step 1. Finding the perfect plot. We explore location, size, and potential. Next, construction begins. Witness the foundation being laid, walls rising, and rooms taking shape. Step 3. Electricity matters. We delve into wiring, switches, and smart home tech. Step 4. From paint choices to fixtures, it's all about aesthetics. Step 5. It's time to get the right furniture. Finally, the big day. Time to move in and create memories. Join us on the journey to making homes a reality on The Realtor, Tuesdays 6:30.
Kila Kila kiongozi ana hadithi yake ya kipekee.
Wazazi wangu walikuwa bit strict kwa sababu mamangu mwenyewe, mimi kutoka kuzaliwa sijailala nje.
The white small one, huyo ana sniff gunpowder na risasi na bomb. Alafu huyo mwingine ni ridgeback ana sniff simba.
Even the employees knows that. So when in the boardroom is the chairman, the CEO, and the rest of.
At what point are you a wife?
The minute you get to that inside that door, you become now the wife.
Na kila maamuzi wanayoyafanya hufichua mengi kuhusu utu wao na uongozi wao.
We see God blessing us and we now realize the power of giving.
1:30 jioni.
In a world where challenges are as common as opportunities, there are those who dare to defy the odds. They are the entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurship isn't just about starting a business. It's about embracing uncertainty, pushing boundaries, and turning dreams into reality.
Hata ambao ni pesa ya kusave. Wallahi. Mbao mwaka ni pesa nyingi sana.
As long as you're earning something, there's always that opportunity to save. And you start with where you are.
The way we run the business is in a very unforgiving way, where every team member has to bring out their best.
So, to all the dreamers, innovators, and risk takers out there, remember, being an entrepreneur isn't just a job, it's a way of life. Join the journey. Become an entrepreneur. The Grind, Mondays at 7:30 p.m.
Here on Beyond the Limit, we celebrate the extraordinary achievements of individuals who redefine possibilities. In a journey of resilience and determination, these individuals demonstrate that limitations are merely stepping stones to greatness.
And rooms taking shape. Step 3. Electricity matters. We delve into wiring, switches, and smart home tech. Step 4. From paint choices to fixtures, it's all about aesthetics. Step 5. It's time to get the right furniture. Finally, the big day. Time to move in and create memories. Join us on the journey to making homes a reality on The Realtor, Tuesdays, 6:30.
Welcome back to the Daily Report and welcome to the marketplace. Tonight, we are all driving change in this studio. We're going to be talking about sustainable development goals, but we're going to be focusing on health policies and migration. We want to know how exactly these things usually coincide, and quite honestly, I think I have the best people for this. I have Dr. Santino Severoni, who is really close to me, the Director, Department of Health and Migration for the World Health Organization Headquarters. Good evening.
Good evening to you.
Welcome to TV47.
Thank you.
I also have with me Dr. Maslin Kamande, who is the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Mount Kenya University. Good evening.
Good evening.
The only lady in my panel. So I will be favoring you a lot. And of course, I have Professor John Struthers, who is the Chancellor of Mount Kenya University, and the Director, Karid, from the University of the West Scotland. Welcome.
Good evening to you.
Good evening. I'll start with you, Daktari. And I'm saying Daktari meaning doctor. You are a medical doctor. You have been the director of the Department of Health and Migration at the World Health Organization headquarters since 2020. Now, I'm going through a few statistics here, and I see that in East and Horn of Africa, it is estimated to be home to approximately around 464 million people. At the same time, it hosts 8.5 million international migrants, which includes 4.7 million labor migrant workers and 22.3 million displaced persons. When it comes to policy making, of course, you are aware that things are different in different regions. For this particular region, and when it comes to these migrants, what are some of the gaps that we're seeing?
Well, the main gap has been, unfortunately, up to now, that migrants, refugees, IDPs, they were not included into health policies. And this is a big issue because basically health sectors of the countries hosting this population, they were acting only in case of emergency. And this is not good because the exclusion from access to preventive and curative services is paramount for the health of these people,
right,
but also of the community hosting them.
Which is very important to have. And speaking of communities, Dr. Maslin, of course, as the Deputy Vice Chancellor of the Mount Kenya University, you have been interacting with a lot of youth. They say that generations are different when it comes to cohesion. What would you say about this Gen Zs? Are they cohesive? Are we seeing a community that is coming together?
My assessment of the Gen Z, as we call them, is that they are very much aware. It's a generation that is aware of what needs to be. They may not have the power to change, but they are able to articulate their needs. And that has put institutions, including academic institutions and government institutions, on the spot to be able to better predict their needs and to be able to actually hear them. So in terms of them being, again, if I can talk about the inclusiveness that Dr. has talked about,
right,
and then we must include them in policy if we really have to address their needs.
Right, and we're stepping towards the correct direction.
No, definitely we are. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I also have Professor John Struthers, of course, the Chancellor of the Mount Kenya University. Maybe if you could just tell me, you do come from a different region than us. Would you say that you are seeing, cohesiveness here, and how does it compare to your home?
Yeah, cohesiveness is a problem everywhere in the world, actually, including Europe. But I suppose in Africa, it's a much bigger problem because of the scale of, as you said yourself, the number of migrants who work outside their home countries for whatever reason, often economic reasons, sometimes due to conflict, war and disruption.
Right.
But we're seeing, I think we're seeing this across the world these days. One of the big discussions in the UK is, although we don't receive hundreds of thousands of migrants,
right,
it's one of the top political discussion topics in the UK at the moment,
right,
as we come up to the general election on the 4th of July, just next week. And it's often a very divisive discussion based on not facts, but rumours and prejudices to some extent in the UK. So that is something that applies everywhere.
Right, Professor, and I think I'm just going to take some of the sentiments that you've shared on a lack of cohesiveness, and now I'll come to you, Dr. Santino. Maybe if you could just tell us, when it comes to cross-border harmonization of policies, as the World Health Organization, I think you're the best person to tell us this. Health policies, are we doing our best to have, a cohesive, joint effort?
It's a bit of complex situation because we do know very well what should be done,
right,
but actually we are not applying it. So we know very well that the issue of migration as a whole, managing the migration phenomenon, managing displacement, is something which is supposed to be done in collaboration among countries.
Right.
While the tendency is to focus our attention on protecting borders or managing borders and acting as a single country. So the risk is that we are keeping reinventing and facing the same challenges on and on.
Right. And when it comes to reinventing, Dr. Maslin, of course, there have been some questions on, some of the courses that are offered in Kenya. They do say, or a lot of people do say, that these courses should be adjusted at changing times. As the, Deputy Vice Chancellor of the Mount Kenya, University, maybe you could just tell us, are we taking this into consideration? Are we at par with the world?
Definitely in Kenya, what I would say in terms of the education ecosystem, is like there is more emphasis in us being able to address the present needs,
right,
and to be able to actually bring people together so that we can be able to solve the community problems. So in that then, most of our curriculums are geared towards being able to speak to the problems in the society and being able to look at the diversity of the people we have. Because definitely nowadays, the kind of students that we have, and especially in our region, Kenya, we are surrounded with quite a number of nationalities that would want to come and enjoy what we have in Kenya. And so that one of the things that we do is that we want to make our curriculums more inclusive, addressing not only the Kenyan problems, but being able to go a bit of regional and global so that we can be able to prepare students and the workforce more for the region more than for the country.
Right, which is very important, having a global, perspective when it comes to some of our workers and our education system as well. Professor Struthers, when we look at these numbers, we're seeing 8.5 million international, migrants, 4.7 million labor migrants, 22.3 million displaced persons. If we take the social aspect out of it and we just look at the numbers, this could be labor. Right? And are we looking at it as labor? Do we have the social capacity to be taking these people into our communities, or are governments, giving a deaf ear to some of these people?
I think it's a mixture, actually, because of the numbers involved. I think, to be honest, one has to be realistic in terms of, as Dr. Severino said earlier, I think until recently, the policy approach has been reactive to this phenomenon, and it is a phenomenon now. It's one of the key phenomena, I think, currently in the world, mass migration alongside climate change and so on. Right. So I do think, as Dr. Messlin made a good point, that I'm an economist, that's my profession, and we tend to take the view that when somebody migrates to another country, and we're all migrants to some extent in this world.
Give or take, to be honest, we're all migrants.
Yeah, we are. And people migrate for usually for economic reasons, to better themselves. Right. Even those who have to migrate to another country because of war or whatever, that is an extreme case. So as an economist, I'm always looking at this in terms of the lost potential of individuals to contribute to society as much as to the economy. Right. And this is why we need to pull our resources together across different countries. And this is now happening in certain parts of the world much better than it used to. Right. Even in Europe, because we saw the Ukraine war a couple of years ago, and the response of European countries to receive people who were fleeing that war. Hundreds of thousands moved into Germany, Poland, and so on. Right. So I think it's to do with a mindset, really, on the part of governments, not to demonize migrants at all.
Right, and that brings us to this, could be contentious a little bit, but the questions need to be asked. When it comes to migrants, do you believe that maybe the world classifies migrants as positive migrants who could bring change depending on where they come from, and migrants who they do not want?
Well, the topic remaining highly politically sensitive and polarizing. Right. Something happened. I don't know, I cannot explain properly or in details, but something happened during the global financial crisis of 2008, where migration was discovered as an excellent argument for political campaign. Right. So the narrative became suddenly toxic and putting the migration phenomenon at the center of all problems we are facing, which is not the truth. Right. Also, from the public health point of view, the situation is much more articulated. Right. And actually, what we see when migrants are moving, people which decide to move for their own personal or family development, they're in good conditions. But it's the process they are exposed to, and sometimes the migration process is extremely long and perilous. This is the main cause of possible health issues. Right. But also at the arrival, when people, especially those not really well off, are migrating, they tend to settle down at the rival countries in the lower paid job or more dangerous job, or living in condition of a kind of poverty or even social exclusion.
Right.
Those are tremendous trigger for poor health outcomes of this population. So again, all the phenomenon had been suffering kind of accusation to be responsible of the impact of malfunctioning systems at the country of arrival, but this is not the truth.
Right.
And particular attention in these days politically is given to irregular migrants. Right. And I like to stress the fact that this is just a very small portion in comparison of those migrating and contributing to the society, working in a rival society, paying taxes, contributing intellectually, professionally. So the focus on irregularity is actually, we are going to penalize and attack somehow politically those more in need, which are supposed to be assisted because they are probably the last of the society in that moment. So it's really a very painful process what we are observing. And from the public point of view, we are very concerned because main issues remain scarce, insufficient access to health services.
Right, which is very important to highlight. Brilliant, thank you so much. Dr. Maslin, now we come into the Kenyan context, right? We do see that a lot of migrants usually settle on the lower cadres, the lower classes. They take, you know, the less wanted jobs. When it comes to Kenyans, do you believe that maybe we do settle into those particular jobs? Are we doing our best to go out there and get the best jobs that we can?
I would look at it from two points of view. There is the migrants who come in, and especially people who are coming for asylum, I'm seeking, and the refugees may settle that. But one of the things that has happened in the government is that they have tried to include them, especially in the education system. They have been able to gain education when they have been here. But there is also now the level of the other immigrants who come here as skilled workers. In Kenya, we have quite a number of skilled workers. And I think the environment in Kenya has been very good in being able to receive immigrant workers and being able to settle in good jobs. I think we are home of quite a number of international organizations, which has absorbed quite a number of international workers. But also looking at it now on the other side of us migrating out, I think Kenya has also been quite proactive in trying to create opportunities for people to be able to move out in more decent jobs. And maybe if I can mention a bit of the Middle East crisis, which has been there for quite some time. I think the government has made efforts to be able to actually ease that by having these people put in the or rather in a more formal kind of immigration connection, and that has helped a bit. But having said that, I think it has not eliminated the people who move out and they still settle for lower paying jobs there.
All right, Dr. Maslin, do you believe that maybe our education system could be either holding back or propelling these people?
Education, yes and no, but maybe it is more of our labor market. I would look at it, our labor market is still a bit concentrated. I think we don't have as many, we have more people who are educated without enough opportunities. And I think that has propelled people to move out. And I think there has also been quite a campaign of like, we are training for the global market. So people have stopped looking at, I'm going to school, I'm going to college, I'm getting these skills to work just in Kenya. So we have quite a number of, the population of Kenya, which is even in the region, is quite large. So that has positioned us better, and that's why I say that education, yes or no, because basically we've been competitive in the region. So we have been more advantaged to be able to get jobs elsewhere, and also our companies have been able to move out. So I think it's an advantage in one way, but and because it's a changing environment in terms of, and especially now I think we are focusing more on the skills acquisition in our new approach to education, it is going to do more to be able to give people more skill that can be able to work within and also in the region.
Right. We are trying, to be honest, as a low middle income, state, we do have a lot of skilled, laborers that we usually do export. And Professor John, you've told me that you're an economist. I'm about to use that against you right now. When it comes to, racial profiling, especially when it comes to, the labor markets, do you believe that it plays a role? We do know that it plays a role, but how dire is the consequences? And do you believe that maybe when migrants move to other countries who could be, classified as racially, and I don't mean this, racially inferior, do you believe that they have a harder time getting to the top cadres?
Yes is the answer to that question. It's just it's the reality of it, because as Dr. Severina says, especially amongst what you refer to as the irregular migrants, because aside to the irregular migrants, there are regular migrants who are usually highly skilled and needed in the host country to which they migrate to.
Right.
But the public's attention and the public prejudice, if you like, is often not shown at that group. For example, in the UK, we are really short of a lot of health professionals now, especially since we left the EU, just to give a European perspective on this. And we're crying out to some of our European countries to send some of the workers that left back again to Europe. But also in African countries, there's now a very strong appeal to countries like Ghana and Kenya, of course, as well, I think, for nurses to go and work in British hospitals.
Right.
I'm not sure if this is the right answer to your question. Well, I did give you a direct answer. The answer was yes.
No wrong answer.
There is prejudice. There's no doubt about it. But what I would say is that the way in which let's call it the host population, the receiving population, received migrants is often coloured, or let me say jaundiced, by the media, who paint a negative, constantly negative narrative of migrants and their families. The evidence, there's a lot of economic analysis on this topic. The entrepreneurialism amongst migrants is, we measure these things with certain barometers. We like to measure everything, economists. We measure these things by various indicators. The propensity to become a self-made businessman or woman, and it's much higher in the migrant population. We use the word migrant population rather than the immigrant population.
Very nuanced.
That is the answer. That is the answer partly to your question. So I think it ties in with what Dr. Messlin said in terms of the labour market and the skills that every country needs. And will need at certain times in their history. Often we take a very short-term view of these situations. And one good thing about having an economic perspective rather than a political perspective is that we economists like to look at the long-term impacts. There might be some short-term pain, but there is long-term gain. In this process.
Not just people, but numbers. That's very important to, note. Dr. Santino, I just want to get your sentiments on this a little bit. When it comes to cohesion, now that we're even talking about it and it's on the table already, and social, development goals, we see that from 1 to around 13, no poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being, quality education, gender equality. When migrants move and health policies are to be made for these migrants, do you believe then that these SDG goals, all of them are compromised? How can we solve this?
Well, from the health point of view, but not only the health goal of the SDG, undoubtedly suffer during COVID. COVID situation was somehow withholding the progress towards development plans, and this has been proven in a number of situations. But it's also true that post-COVID is showing an acceleration in many cases. I believe the SDG are very important because for the first time the topic of migration is very much present into the SDG.
Right.
And this was not the case with the Millennium Development Goals. So
Right.
the previous set of goals was actually not looking into migration issues. When we go to the health sector, we still suffer the fact that there is no specific reference to health of migrants or health of mobile population.
Right.
The target we are looking at are more inclusiveness of the health system with universal coverage, primary health care. So target which we need to adapt or we need to link to bring in the element of migration into the existing SDG 3 target which are under implementation of member states.
Right.
Overall, indicators, they're telling us that we reach certainly a point of not return in terms of looking at the migration phenomenon.
Right.
The health sectors, which they were almost not involved into this discussion at the government level, they understand how important it is to have one health system able to serve the health needs of all population present in the country,
Right.
regardless your migratory status, your nationality, or the color of your skin, or where you come from.
Right. And Dr. Maslin, now I'll ask you, when it comes to, health policies, we do have the universal health coverage, which is quite new. And if we talked about, having a cohesive health coverage, policy, especially in the East African community, we would have a lot of problems. But when it comes to SDGs, these are things that we could be, cohesive upon. Do you believe that maybe countries should be coming together on, the major things before they fine-tune the policies?
I do agree. It is very important for us to work as a region, and there's a lot of efforts that are going into working together as a region through the East African community. Right. If you look at the previous meetings for the councils of ministers and what they have been driving in terms of the SDGs, actually the SDGs have become very central in terms of pushing the policies for the SDGs. Right. And needless to say that some of the institutions actually are in the middle of what is happening.
Right.
And there's a lot of efforts from the regional the regional organizations to be able to bring people together. For example, I can talk about that, like Mount Kenya, we are privileged to be one of the academic chairs of the SDGs.
Right.
And it is on the climate change, and a while ago we were also one for, we were linking up with education, right. And that gives us a good platform for us to be able to actually be able to influence what is happening in the region.
Right.
And I look at it that when we prepare such kind of platforms, whether at the political level or even at institutional levels, then it helps us even as academicians and as institutions to be able to actually discuss the problems that bring us together, because there is quite a lot in the region that brings us together. You have talked about the universal health. There is a lot of learning from the region. We have a branch in Rwanda, and right. I have been there for a while, and I know the way their universal health works. And it really resonates with what we are doing in Kenya, whereby you are able to actually take care of the very low and talk about inclusion, where people who cannot be able to pay for their medical covers, the government is coming in to be able to subsidize for them. And if you look at what is happening in the region, that has become quite common. I think one of the countries that is doing quite a lot is Rwanda, and there is also a bit of it in the other East African region. So I must say that what the East African community is doing is try to bring these policies together so that we are able to actually speak from the same platform, because the problems that we face in Kenya, health-wise, are generally the ones that in the region we face. And if we combine to be able to eradicate issues of hunger, to eradicate poverty, then I think we are moving in the right direction.
Right, we're moving in the right direction once again. Thank you so much, Dr. Maslin. Let's look at the economic value of the Sustainable Development Goals. And I'm looking at no poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being for a lot of countries that are like us, you know, within, you know, lower income, lower middle income, you know, status, and we have the third world countries. This might be our priorities, but for first world countries, it might not be. And I believe that one of the reasons why the SDG goals have not been taken up as much as it should be taken up is the fact that what's in it for us? You know, that question usually does come in. So how can we, you know, push for these countries to take a look at these other countries so that we can have a cohesive, you know, look into this?
Yeah, you're raising some really complex paradoxes there within these 4 SDGs that you mentioned. They're all equally important. All of the SDGs are equally important, I think. But when it comes to prioritizing, and this is what you've asked about, there's a huge debate in economics as to what comes first. You know, so for example, do you need more economic growth to be able to reduce poverty, or do you need to reduce poverty to achieve greater economic growth? We economists spend hours of sleepless nights thinking about these trade-offs between these particular ones.
Right.
In the area of inequality, for example, inequality and fair jobs and well-paid jobs, there's quite a lot of evidence, economics, in the economics literature, that if you pay people well, they produce well.
Right.
It's called efficiency wages, i.e., you know, if you suddenly say to somebody, I'm going to double your salary.
Oh, I would personally work very hard.
You would triple your productivity.
Right.
So there's a kind of multiplier effect. I know you said you don't want us to be technical, but but these are the trade-offs that I think we have to grapple with, and they're not easy. They're not easy to resolve, and this is even before we bring in the very important element of health.
Right.
Because without health, you know, people won't be able to work.
Right.
And if you don't have people who are able to work, you don't have an economy. But I must go back to the point I've just made. The way that we navigate through these various waters, if you like, of the SDGs is really difficult. I will say one more thing on this. The universities in the UK have really faced up to the SDGs. Every research project that we are trying to do, you know, and my centre, the Careed, we've been involved in quite a few in Rwanda and Kenya with Mount Kenya University, and also one currently in Nigeria that we're working on. The requirement to get a research project approved and funded is that the SDGs have to be satisfied, or at least a majority of them. You won't be able to satisfy all 17?
Right, there's 17.
17.
Right? Yes.
I got the figure right. But the thing is, you know, that is now an objective of the research that we do. So all the research that we do, actually, at least in the social sciences and economics, has to address at least some of the SDGs.
Right. Professor, you've raised a very important concept that I'd like for us to discuss a little bit. What came first, the chicken or the egg? What is our priority, Dr. Santino? Maybe if you would just tell us, what is our priority when it comes to health policies? We cannot, you know, unify all health policies, but what are some of the things we should focus on?
Well, for us it's very clear we are much more easier than economists. Political commitment.
Right.
If you want to have an effective policy, you need to start with political commitment, otherwise nothing moves. Then these need to be supported by strong evidence, research and data, and translating all this into action.
Right.
So as you see, it's a process, but starting with a political commitment. So that's top priority, I guess for us.
Political commitment is very important. Dr. Marceline, let's talk about educational commitment a little bit. When it comes to, you know, pushing these SDGs, all these things need to be done by the coming generations. Right? Do you believe that even in the Kenyan curriculums, Kenyan, you know, courses, are we teaching these SDGs? Are they being taken seriously?
Sure, I can say that we are taking them seriously in the sense that now the way most of the curriculums are done, and that is all the way from the basic, we are really looking at being able to reduce the inequalities among the population.
Right.
How are we able to bring people who are more skilled to be able to not only look for the white collar jobs.
Right.
The white collar jobs will never be enough, but when we train people to be more useful to the community, to be able to, he talked about entrepreneurship, people who can be able to actually start their businesses and grow. Like in Kenya, we have quite a strong middle income community,
Right.
And I think it's doing quite a lot in demystifying the fact that I must be in an office. I can be able to start something and be able to do that. So, but how does education help that? It is to equip the people to be able to do whatever they need to do. And right now the education sector is more focused in terms of building these skills and recognizing even the talents.
Right.
I think for a long time in Kenya we were not taking talent as a source of economic well-being, but right now we are quite proactive in trying to encourage children. If you are gifted in a creative art, you can be able to make money from that.
Right.
I think our digital economy has also done quite a bit. I think thanks to COVID-19, we realize that there is a whole opportunity for us in the digital economy.
Right.
And I must say that the government has taken this forward to be able to encourage more young people to be able to acquire skills. Look at initiatives like the Ajira, which is equipping people for online jobs.
Right.
It's an initiative that has helped both youths, even those ones in the university and those in the village, to be able to know that there's something that they can do with the skill that they have, and they can be able to actually live their lives. So I look at it, and then there's also quite an emphasis on the TVET, the technical vocational training,
right.
Which again has demystified the fact that education is not just about universities. It is about being able to get the skill, and it has been so inclusive such that even somebody who did not do very well academically, they still have an entry point. And most of the universities, including Mount Kenya University, will look at the university bit of it, and we'll also have a TVET arm so that we can create more opportunities for the young generation.
Right.
And I think it's bearing fruit.
Right. They say necessity is the mother of all invention. COVID might have been, negative, but it did have its positives. We go for a very short health break. When we come back, we continue with this conversation. Don't go too far.
Kila kiongozi ana hadithi yake ya kipekee.
Wazazi wangu walikuwa bit strict kwa sababu mamangu mwenyewe, mimi kutoka kuzaliwa sijailala nje.
The white small one, huyo ana sniff gunpowder na risasi na bomb. Alafu huyo mwingine ni ridgeback ana sniff simba.
Even the employees knows that. So when in the boardroom is the chairman, the CEO, and the rest of.
At what point are you a wife?
The minute you get to that inside that door, you become now the wife.
Na kila maamuzi wanayoyafanya hufichua mengi kuhusu utu wao na uongozi wao.
We see God blessing us, and we now realize the power of giving also has to be rewarded back.
Kupitia kipindi Mfahamu Kiongozi, tunakuletea mahojiano ya kusisimua na uchambuzi wa kina kuhusu viongozi wetu.
Pick your core business as the bigger stones. Put them in your diary first. Give priority the bigger things.
Usikose kila Alhamis saa 1:30 jioni.
In a world where challenges are as common as opportunities, there are those who dare to defy the odds. They are the entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurship isn't just about starting a business. It's about embracing uncertainty, pushing boundaries, and turning dreams into reality.
Hata ambao ni pesa ya kusave. Wallahi. Mbao mwaka ni pesa nyingi sana.
As long as you're earning something, there's always that opportunity to save. And you start with where you are.
The way we run the business is in a very unforgiving way, where every team member has to bring out their best.
So, to all the dreamers, innovators, and risk takers out there, remember, being an entrepreneur isn't just a job, it's a way of life. Join the journey. Become an entrepreneur. The Grind, Mondays at 7:30 p.m.
And welcome back to the marketplace. We were talking about sustainable development goals, health policies, other such policies, the globe and how it touches on Kenyans. And of course, now we move to an even more interesting phase of this conversation. We're looking at the Economic, Development Annual International Conference carried, the 8th one so far. We're looking at fostering economic transformation. Professor John, I'll come to you now. When it comes to the Kenyan gross domestic product, we're doing quite well, but Africa's gross domestic product is doing even better. When it comes to economic growth, 2 to 3% growth annually. When it comes to innovation and the potential to increase productivity, it's up 30%, but Kenya is lagging a bit. Do you believe that maybe there are, social issues that could be triggering or fostering or, in another case, hindering the growth of Kenya?
Well, the honest answer to that question is it's difficult to keep a constant rate of growth going all the time.
Right.
Because there are capacity limits in an economy. It used to be called absorptive capacity.
Right.
So sometimes, this may sound paradoxical, sometimes it can be beneficial for the rate of economic growth of a country, especially when we consider climate change impacts, to not increase as much.
Right.
We don't want it to decline,
Right.
but it's the rate of increase that really matters. And sometimes the rate of increase can be so high.
Right.
Now, but within an African context, that might be slightly unbelievable,
Right.
in the sense that African countries generally, and East Africa is different from West Africa, North Africa and Southern Africa, of course.
Right.
We never generalize across the 54 countries
Right.
of Africa. But the way in which the different types of African countries grow is itself of interest.
Right.
So the way that Kenya's grown is moving away from its dependency on agriculture towards, as you say, is a growing middle-income country now. And if I think like a country like Ethiopia, which I'm associated with in some degree, they've also gone for a similar path
Right.
with their industrial parks,
Right.
clusters of economic activity. It's quite an interesting model across Africa, actually,
Right.
that other African regions can learn from. Yes, the challenge is, as you said yourself, everything is connected.
Right.
If you've got a very high rate of economic growth and you don't have the labour force to service that growth, then what's the point? And then it brings in the migration topic again, because you might then have to appeal to another country, please send some of your workers. This does happen. This has happened in history.
Right.
I come from Scotland, where we have a very small population of just over 5 million. We are underpopulated.
Right. Shockingly.
Underpopulated.
Right.
And this is quite an unusual situation to be in. Let me just explain what we mean by CAREED, if I may give a little plug for my centre.
Please do.
CAREED stands for the Centre for African Research on Enterprise and Economic Development. It's a mouthful.
Right.
So the acronym CAREED is easier to pronounce. And we've been running since 2015 And we focus on positive aspects of economic growth in Africa. The narrative is often very negative about Africa in Western media. And most of our colleagues in Scotland are African. I'm one of the few exceptions not being African.
Right.
And we focus on this link between entrepreneurship and economic development. There are many links between the ability of individuals to be entrepreneurial. If you think of the major growth of big American companies at the start of the 20th century, like Ford Motors and so on, how they grew from nothing, from something very small.
Right.
So this is what we're trying to encourage in our own modest way, because we operate in Scotland.
Right.
And we want to see this across the African continent. Yes. So just on the fact that the conference is being held here in Africa, in Kenya,
for the
tomorrow,
first time.
For the first time.
Congratulations
yes,
to us.
So yes, so we are so happy to be here.
Right.
And we've been working well with Mount Kenya University and the World Health Organization over the last few months because we've introduced a new public health track into our conference.
Right.
If you look at some of the themes, we have how to reduce inequality in African economies. That's one of the themes tomorrow. One other one is the impact of infrastructure and innovation. One of the big problems in many African countries, as we know, is the lack of proper infrastructure to help the economy to grow. But also we look at the role of higher education in the economy, because the education sector is a sector like mining or any other sector that can boost the economy. And we also cover entrepreneurship, particularly female and youth entrepreneurship. And I'll just finish on this point. Dr. Merslin made the point that Mount Kenya University, and now this is a plug for Mount Kenya University,
where
I'm the Chancellor, that they are very, very innovative, in my opinion, in trying to address the problem in many African countries of youth unemployment. It's one of the huge problems in Africa.
Right.
And universities in the UK are leaders in this field, because we have a lot of provision for graduates to set up their own businesses, internships and so on. And some of our interactions through my own university in Scotland with Mount Kenya University have led to some joint projects in that area. So that's a slightly longer answer than I wanted to give.
Right. No, it's all good, Professor. Of course, Dr. Santido, you said health is a bit less complicated than economics and, economic development and entrepreneurship.
Not always.
Not always, he says. But he has mentioned something very interesting about a public health, inter alia conference between the three bodies and how important this is going to be. Do you believe that, we're stepping towards the right direction in this respect? When it comes to, getting political goodwill, you've said that's the most important thing. Are you getting political goodwill in a lot of the countries within Africa, and most importantly in Kenya?
I believe that we are observing a world on the move, if I can play with words.
Right.
When we go to the issue of health and migration, the situation is radically changed to compare to 2 decades ago.
Right.
As I mentioned before, attention in the past was solely concentrated on emergency situations. So there is a refugee camp in Kenya, there is an outbreak of cholera, that's the moment the health was paid attention. It's been realized that, first of all sectors are interconnected, and unfortunately COVID has been reaffirming that in a very painful way. So you cannot disconnect elements of the society or sectors thinking that they are silos and independent from each other.
Right.
Health particularly not only influence other sectors, but policy decisions taken in other sectors, they are having a powerful fallout on the health sector, on the health of people. Imagine industrial development or a political choice in relation to investment, deforestation or agriculture and so on. If we are going in the right direction, I would say we are moving We know what needs to be done. We have clarity on that. We see a lot of countries which are giving hope because they are moving faster than others. Today, to compare to a few years ago, probably 40% of the countries worldwide, they brought the health and migration into the health agenda. So we see national policy including that. We see service, we see training devoted to undergraduate curricula and continuous education into that. But still, we are having concerning area of gap where we need to invest more. And I like to build on a carried objective. If I can choose two priorities, since you asked me before to prioritize. It's very important to strengthen the link with Africa in terms of research. When I look at the ongoing research or financing research on health and migration, we observe that 97% of the funding on research on health and migration, they're going to high-income countries. Observing what happened in the low-income setting, so it's a sort of research in vitro, and that's not efficient. We need to involve more the actors, those which are at the starting point of the migration phenomenon, and we need to also promote partnership, collaboration, networking in order to learn also from other side of our world. The second element is the connection with the economic dimension. I like to often remember that there is a cost of inaction that's supposed to be estimated, quantified versus a cost of action. And in public health, we do know very well in terms of public health outcomes, less well in terms of economic mechanisms. So that's why research in this area is very important, that non-acting has a higher cost than acting. So procrastinating, postponing, limiting access to health of people, it's usually leading to higher spending later on and higher difficulty managing health issues.
Which is very important to note. And as we start to conclude this conversation, as scintillating as it has been, Dr. Maslin, when it comes to the Center for African Research on Enterprise and Economic Development, it is a mouthful carried. You know, it comes for the first time to Africa, and it comes to Kenya, and it comes to Mount Kenya University, and it is the 8th annual international conference. When it comes to Kenya, how is this particular, summit going to change the perspective on a lot of, the people and the government on entrepreneurship, enterprise, and economic development?
Yeah, first, as Mount Kenya University, we are excited to be the first hosts in Africa and being able to work with our long-time collaborators, the University of West of Scotland. And one thing that has happened even in our preparation to that is that it has made even our staff more aware of what is happening in the region, and even the very collaboration of being able to participate in the themes that we've talked about, the public health theme. We also have the immigration as one of the themes, and the other issues that we have, the issue of social enterprises, we have the issues of the entrepreneurship, as we've talked about, we have the issues of infrastructure. Now, the approach of this conference is really to almost bring everybody on the table, so that, because we realize that economists, we don't have the whole solution. Maybe I should have also said that I am an economist.
I have two economists and a doctor.
I'm a minority.
Yes, so one of the things that we've realized is that you don't have all the solutions. You must bring all the mindsets. And when you look at the socioeconomic part of it, then you need to hear what are the sociologists saying about inequalities and how can they, how can they be reduced? And then when we bring in the public health, is like how do we, I like what Dr. has said about that if you don't act now, you are going to spend more. We do a lot of cost-benefit analysis in economics and in business generally, because if the opportunity cost of me not doing what I'm supposed to do now
Right.
is actually going to cost me more. So one of the things that we are looking forward in this conference is to be able to bring people to understand how does the different professionals
Right.
link up to be able to bring a solution to the society, because we are talking about the same society, we
Right.
are talking about the same people, we are going to impact on the same community, so everybody must come together so that we can be able to work together and understand the world allowed us. Talking about entrepreneurship, there are so many opportunities for entrepreneurship and in very many areas.
Right.
So our role as academicians is really to be able to be able to bring the policy aspect into how can we encourage the upcoming scholars
Right.
to be able to understand how they are going to impact on their community. And so I believe it's going to have an impact both on our students. It is going to have, and of course the issue of networking. We are so excited with the opportunity to network with the likes of Dr. Severoni. We have a whole team again from Scotland. We have quite a number of regional delegates who are coming, and we feel that we are actually in Kenya. We look forward to become a springboard of what Khalid is doing up there in Scotland, to become a springboard as Mount Kenya, to be able to spread the agenda of Khalid in the region and be able to impact on our community.
Right, thank you so much, Dr. Arian. Professor, let me just get a final sentiment from you. I do believe that we are even running over time now, and I think you speak on behalf of my other panelists as well. Tomorrow, what should we be looking forward to? What is coming for Kenya?
Yeah, there are two questions there actually. What is coming tomorrow and what's coming for Kenya? I think tomorrow there will be a very rich series of presentations on a whole range of different topics which we've discussed tonight.
Right.
And I hope that through Mount Kenya University, because they're hosting the conference, that in your television channel, this will be disseminated as widely as possible, that there is such a centre such as Creed in Scotland, all those thousands of kilometres away, focused on Africa. And I think I would just summarise it this way. When Dr. Nelson was talking about entrepreneurship, I was thinking scholarship and entrepreneurship are not mutually exclusive.
Right.
They're connected. You can be scholarly and entrepreneurial at the same time.
Right.
And I suppose finally, you never hear the case where two economists agree about anything, but here tonight we've had two economists agree on practically everything.
Right. History is being made here and there. Thank you so much, Professor. Dr. Santino, I hope I haven't closed the doors for you. Are there any final sentiments, a sentence maybe?
Well, three recommendations if we want to see really the agenda of health and migration advancing in all countries. To invest into research, research, research.
Research, research, research. Thank you so much, Dr. Ari. I have had two doctors, a professor, two economists, and a doctor. Quite the conversation here on TV47. Thank you so much for joining us. Until next week, same time, same place. This has been The Marketplace. Have yourselves a very lovely night. My name is Hibak Said.